Welcome and thank you for tuning in to Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy. The following content may involve explicit language and materials, so listener discretion is advised. Welcome back, everybody. Again, this week we have a brand new guest who's never been here. It is Isaac from Hidden in the Shadows Paranormal. I actually believe that I met you through Instagram and then just followed you everywhere else. I'm just going to give you a minute if you want to talk about who you are, what you do, why you do it, anything like that, and just give you an opportunity to just promote yourself.
Yes, I appreciate you having me on. No, I have a paranormal team, Hidden Shadows Paranormal, we've been doing for about 3 years now, and also a paranormal podcaster for about 4 years now. Like most podcasters, we were born from the pandemic, but not a lot survived afterwards. But me and my wife is my co-host and also partner in the paranormal investigation team. We started the whole idea of the podcast because between me and her, we have enough paranormal experiences to probably write a couple of novels. From my time that I lived on a ranch when I was a kid, from her being a very talented psychic medium and every house she's ever lived in being haunted because spirits are attracted to her, the house being previously haunted, now all spirits go to wherever she is, like a beacon, searchlight in the paranormal world.
That is exactly what I say, that I'm just a beacon and they all just flock and I don't understand it.
It tends to happen to those who are psychically inclined. Me, not so much. When I grew up on the ranch, it was just paranormal experiences from that place specifically. And then we decided to do the podcast to talk about our paranormal experiences. And we find out a lot of people have experiences like our own, but people also like our take, because what I've noticed about paranormal podcasters, or even podcasters in particular, but there are people who seem to be involved in the game and those who are just spectators. Those who observe the paranormal because they're too afraid to go into it, and those who live it because it's a daily occurrence for them. So they speak from experience versus saying, hey, that's cool. I never want to do that. So people like our commentary because I've always said that we have experience with most stuff we talk about, but not everything we talk about. So I gave that perspective, but it was because of the podcast that we even joined a paranormal team to begin with. We interviewed a local paranormal team around where we live in North Carolina, East Coast, North Carolina, and we started doing that. But it was through the podcast and doing the pair investigations that I found my ability. That's singular to me, and this is where I can almost guarantee. I know you just started with your podcast. I can almost guarantee you that you've never heard a story like mine and probably never will ever after this. And I know it's a big statement, but allow me to explain. In September of 2020, I gained, or the ability awoke in me. Why does this sometimes happen?
Well, I have a visitor that's followed me since I was a teenager, and it's not nice. At least my lights didn't go off. So sometimes the lights will go off. It's bloodied my nose. It's it's erased my recordings, not like the audio. So when a bunch of weird stuff was happening, I was recording video with the girls from Suspended Sentence podcast. And when I went back to watch it, because so much weird stuff was happening while we were recording, the audio was there, but all of the video was just a black screen.
Damn.
Then I had a bunch of stuff that got caught on my security cameras. And when I went back, only that one piece of video footage was gone out of all of my stuff.
I'll tell you at the end. Yeah. Back to what I was saying. September 2020, I gained, or the ability awoke in me to feel, manipulate, and control the energy of the other side. It all starts with my hands. When I'm near a spirit or anything like that, the sensation feels like when your hands goes numbs.
Yes.
It spreads to the center of my palm, it spreads out through my fingers. The closer or the more powerful the entity is. And I learned to differentiate from right and left. My left hand charges. I call it charging the sensation. When my left hand charges, that's a light spirit, something on the positive side of the spectrum of energy. When my right hand charges, that's something evil, something dark. And not only can I feel said energy, I can pull said energy in. and grab it and hold it. And in the beginning, I would pull it into myself and then filter it like a natural filtration system. And then it would leave me in a breath, like it shivered up my spine.
Yeah.
That action started to take a toll on me. It started aging the right side of my face, turning my beard and my hair gray. So we had to figure out another way to do this. Luckily, I had a member on the previous paranormal team that I was part of had a vision of the King Solomon symbol. He didn't know what it was. He never studied any Judaism or anything like that, so he had no idea. But luckily, we had a member on the team at the time who was Jewish, and he instantly recognized it in the group chat. Hey, that's King Solomon's symbol. So I remember hearing a few stories about King Solomon, exactly who he was and stuff. So I researched a little bit more. King Solomon was a BC era time. He was able to imprison 70 demons in his ring using Samitic magic he learned from his wisdom that was bestowed upon him by God. And the ring was given to him by Archangel Michael, as the story goes. So that gave me the idea. If the only other person in history that I've ever heard of can pull energy in and imprison it.
He's the OG Ghostbuster.
Yeah, technically. Yeah.
Because they kept him in his little boxes. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. If he was the only other person in history to do that, they gave me the idea. Could I do that? So the next time I pulled an entity, by the way, I only ever pull anything that's dark. I never pull anything that's light. I feel it's cruel to do, but anything that's dark, no, I don't give it a second chance. I pulled energy in while wearing a King Solomon replica ring, nothing special, it's steel and silver. And I basically just said into the ring, and then the energy left my hand. Over time, multiple times I did this, the ring started being very loud, not to me, but to my wife, because she's a very psychic medium. So she started hearing screaming coming from the ring, yelling, swearing, like people just angry and pissed off. And she goes, what is this? Oh, you can hear it. She goes, yeah. So she tunes in, and to her, it looks like a prison. All these Dementor from like Harry Potter entities flying around, hitting a glass dome that they can leave, just banging all around, screaming and yelling. 2 other psychic mediums I've showed it to. It sounds like a prison. They say it looks like a prison. They get extremely uneasy staring at it. They get extremely backed up. They don't like it. They hate it. And I'll sense everything that I put in there. Yeah, it would do that. And I have been doing this, the pulling and imprisoning, for about 3 years now. And as so far, I have yet to be stopped by anything. Nothing has been
I call it siphoning. I do that, which is interesting because I never knew what to call this thing that I did. And I've never heard anybody else explain something in a way that made sense. But exactly what you're saying is what I call siphoning. So a lot of times it'll happen when, like, I used to do it to somebody I used to work with. So he would have really bad panic attacks. And when he would start having a panic attack, I would literally just I just need to put my hand somewhere on you. I got to be able to touch you because it's like kind of the key. But I would breathe it in and you could feel it. It would go up the left side or whatever. It would go up once and it would filter through, and then I could push it out the other side and they would instantly calm down, but I didn't have anywhere to get rid of it. So I would just hang on to it, and it would take 2 or 3 hours before it finally would calm down and I could go about my business. But I always just called it siphoning, but it sounds a lot like the sensation that you get in your hands and stuff is exactly what I get when I do that.
What you're describing sounds like Reiki.
Unfortunately, whatever it is that they have that I take, then I have it. And then I'm screwed for a while until I can find a way to get it's like I carry it around until I can find a way to disperse it somewhere. Now I just try not to touch people.
Well, damn. There's something that me and my wife have discovered from people we've talked to. It's not persistent to say that you have psychic mediumship abilities of some kind.
To be fair, I don't claim to have anything, but I can do some really weird shit. Like, really weird. But I don't like to claim it because if you're like, oh, I'm a psychic, then everybody's like, you're a fucking asshole and you're full of shit, which is exactly my reaction, even though I can tell people within 48 hours, typically, like, hey, this person's going to die. Here's how they're going to die. And guess what? It happens. Or you're having a baby and it's going to be a girl and they don't even know they're pregnant yet until I tell them. And it happens to me all the time. Just weird stuff like that happens all the time. I hear things that aren't there. I see things that other people can't see. It's weird stuff. And I just don't put a label on it because I don't feel confident enough to do.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, that sounds like you're clairaudience, clairvoyance, and you have premonition skilled abilities.
I just covered my Ashmore Estates encounter that I had there at my investigation. And there was a guy there, and I could tell he was different, which is weird because I'm not used to being around anybody else who's different. Usually I'm the only black sheep in the group, but this guy was different. And there was a couple girls that were like empathic, I guess would be the best word I could think of. The guy was like, I know that someone in here is different. He knew the two girls that I said were different, but I didn't say anything out loud. I just made a note of it in my head that they're different. I didn't want to be that weirdo. But he pointed out they were different. And he did the same thing that I do to people to know, because you can hold your hand. You probably know what I'm talking about. You hold your hand out, or they hold their hand out usually. And then you can put your hand, just don't touch them, but just over it. And you can feel electricity coming from me. I can feel it going, and people can feel it from me. And it's really weird. And the guy went to the other two girls. He's like, oh, well, you guys are similar, but you have the same thing. Like, you're different, but you both have the same whatever it is. And ironically, then we found out that they actually were related somehow, like they were cousins or something. And then he got to me and he's like, something's different with you, but you're not like them. He's like, to be fair, you're very different than anything or anybody that I've met yet. So I don't really know exactly what's going on with you. But then his wife came in and he was like, oh, I'm not supposed to talk about it. Never mind. And then just left it. It just left me hanging.
You have an EMA, energy manipulation ability. Along with psychic mediums that we've talked to in the past, they also have an EMA. It's an extra ability attached to your psychic ability. Most of it affects energy. So you are affecting energy around people, absorbing, taking, moving around. The EMAs that I have met, or EMA users that I've met in the past, project energy from themselves, almost like a shield or pushing stuff back in case they get in a sticky situation. One EMA user that I used to investigate with, he would almost create an EMP out of himself, of positive wave of energy from his one spot, almost like a bomb. And that would be the case too many things got too close. EMA users I've met in the past, one woman in Seattle, she would project positive energy out of her left hand, pushing back dark entities that got too close to her that might attack her. That's what we try to classify my ability as. But what separates me from all other EMA users is I am not psychic. I am not medium. I can't hear them. I can't see them any more so than anyone who can do an investigation world. But yet my ability allows me to grab them and prison them stronger than anyone has ever have before. To reiterate that statement, I have in my possession, last recall in the ring, 120 demons, 9 witches, 7 elementals, 6 skinwalkers, 2 primordial evil entities, entity called Amarok, and I have lost counts of how many dark human spirits I have taken. And that's all in the last 3.5 years of investigating in 37 home cases that I've done. And I've been able to, lucky enough, my ability seems to evolve every single time I met with a challenge. So in the beginning, like you said, I would have to physically touch somebody. I would have to grab your hand and hold it with your right hand, essentially. And I would be able to enter your mind forest, which is essentially the subconscious part of everyone's mind, that all your darkness and negativity, your trauma, it dwells in that one place. And it takes form. I have seen so many different mind forests from different people, from the foliage, from the trees, from the time of day, from how dense, from how scarce the trees are, from the placement, from the temperature almost, from the season. Everyone varies. And I can actually go into that part of someone's mind and pull that dark energy out. And we've come to the several demonic oppression cases we've done. We found that demons like to lay a piece of themselves in that person's mind forest, that they were almost like a fail safe, just in case someone shoves them away, or in my case, someone pulls them away from said target. At least that's my theory. The other theory is that maybe it's a marker for other dark entities to say, hey, this one's capable of oppression. But in our oppression cases that we've done, the home cases, I've cleared a home, cleared the mind forest, laid down protection in all of 30 minutes. That's my record time. 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Clear a home, clear a mind forest. My wife comes in, lays down some protection, and then we're done. We're set. Have a nice life. You're good for the rest of your time.
Mhm.
And For these services, we do not charge anything, not a single penny. We do never, ever have charged and never will. And I have been on the search to figure out exactly what I am. And in that journey, I have gained 6 names, 6 titles, and they all vary. First woman I spoke to about this was after in November of 2020. So that wasn't several months afterwards. A psychic from Australia. Well, before I do that, let me go back to what I was saying about the mind force thing. In the beginning, I would have to touch your hand. Now, not so much. Or actually not now at all. Because after meditation, after practice, after getting contact with my spirit guides, after all becoming spiritual awoken, as they say, whatever, I have figured out that it's not a vacuum that my hands are doing. Can you imagine strings of energy that leave my fingertips and fire and wrap around the entity like a boa constrictor, condensing and pulling the energy to me of the entity, and that's what I shove into the ring. Those same tendrils I can fire through a phone, like how we're talking, a camera, however. If I can see something in real time like we're doing right now, I can reach through the phone, find what's going on at your place, pull it to where I am, and shove it in the ring. And I have done that 35 times out of the 37 home cases that we've done. Only 2 cases I've ever done in person. All the others have been through the phone. And we have 100% perfection rate with clearing people's homes out. Sometimes it takes 2 times because we might miss something the first time around, but after that, perfectly fine. They haven't had any paranormal experiences. We've actually upset some people who've wanted paranormal experiences and now they have nothing there. But I don't know why you would, unless you're extremely fascinated and want your house to be haunted. We come to find out that after taking all the bullies away, the spirits that are there that were being almost like suppressed actually communicate more. They're actually happy. They're actually trying to talk to us. We get a hell lot more communication through the spirit box than just hearing our outside ears after I take everything dark away. And then we continue our investigation, talking to all the spirits there. And then my wife,
Chris from South Australia, or Spirit Crew South Australia, was talking about a bear. And I was like, oh, I have some spirits here that would love it. And I didn't hear anything until I went back to edit. And right after we were talking about it, there was like a pause from her shifting whatever she was doing. And you heard one come in and say, it sounded like mommy. And then it just sounded like a normal kid. Like I was used to the voice. I recognized it. But then one right after it said something, it was this deep growly thing and it was cussing at it to get it out.
well, you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Well, he was curious about you.
You can use past tense now because he's no longer there.
Yeah, my headache went away. So I figured he was either somewhere or gone.
Oh, yeah. He's in his brand new home.
Good.
Blop.
You can keep him there. So they sit in your ring, right? What would... Okay, so bear with me because I'm going to ask you probably a really stupid question because for everybody else who's out here who has ever watched Supernatural, I've got to ask because they're probably asking the same thing. What would happen if you salted that ring and burnt it? Would they essentially disappear? Would they like be gone? Is there a chance that they could something could happen to your ring and they could escape?
Here's what's really going to cook your noodle.
Okay.
Is it the ring that's keeping him in there or is it me?
My next question was, what happens when you die? But I'm not real subtle about that.
No, I have been trying to figure out what it is for a while. And my best guess that I have right now, because the obvious should have came to me within like a year of me doing this. I was essentially putting dark energy and attaching it to an object that is a haunted object as we know them. And haunted objects, as we know them, they tend to influence and affect people around them, whatever room they're in. So if you have a haunted doll, haunted object, haunted box, whatever it is, that thing can affect people in the room that it's in. And just one demon in that ring should be able to make this house insane. And I have 120 of them in there.
I think it depends on how it's done and what it is. I feel like it is very different for a spirit to attach itself to something. So if a spirit said, I like this ring, I'm attaching myself to this ring because I want to, then I feel like it has a totally different effect. But the fact that you're shoving it in there like a prison cell, I feel like that it makes it less of a quote unquote haunted object and more of a, I guess, like a talisman type thing.
here's the other thing. No one in this home has been affected by it. No one.
Yeah. That's what I'm
And
saying. Maybe it holds it in because it's not choosing to be attached to it.
here's where it's really going to get fucking weird. I'm like everything I've told you so far. But
That's okay. I'm totally not weirded out at all because all this sounds familiar to me. I recognize everything you're saying so far.
yeah.
So,
The same way I go into people's mind forests remotely and stuff like that, if I'm in person, I can do that for the ring. I actually can go inside and see exactly what's going on. And that's how I interrogate entities and get information out of them of why they were oppressing somebody, why they were haunting a certain place, why they were affecting people. I can find out those answers by, like I said, interrogating. But I essentially go into the ring, and what it looks like to me is like imagine a forest after a nuclear blast. All the trees are black and burnt ash covered. The ground is mud and dirt. The sky is overcast darkness. You hear lightning in the background, but it doesn't sound like such like lightning. It sounds like metal tearing. And all these entities in there are yelling and screaming. The best way I can say to describe how it sounds like, if you're a Slipknot fan at all, the opening track to Iowa 515, that times 100, and you might get an idea what it sounds like in there. But no, everything in there can't leave the shadow figures that I've taken, the demons, what they look like. Nothing has anyone ever described. Some pretty close of how we described it, but most of it is, we imagine a human, 2 legs, 2 arms, but their skin is just black. It's not black like African American
it's
black. Some have horns, some don't. Some have more animalistic look to them, some more creature. But one thing I noticed that the higher the ranking the demon, the more designs they have in their skin, like tattoos almost, but they're the ornate designs that look like they were carved in their skin. And the more the high ranker there are, the more designs there are. It's almost like a gang with tattoos and stuff like that. The more you have, the higher the rank. Yeah.
I was thinking gang, but then I was going more indigenous people where they scar their skin and tattoo their skin that means different things. So the fishers have fish or whatever, the symbol for fish, and depends on what you did and what you accomplished, you would get a tattoo like Maui from Moana. As he accomplished a task, he would get a tattoo, right?
Your analogies, I'm talking about something very dark and evil. You go, you remember like Maui?
So Maui does something, he gets a tattoo for it. It's the same concept, only who the hell hasn't seen Moana yet?
These are like more carved and actually design. It's like branding almost.
Mhm.
But,
That's what I was thinking, like the scarring when it's like bubbled up, like when you can get an implant, a subdermal implant, and people give themselves scales and stuff, like gills.
Yeah. What in this journey of mine that I've been doing to try to figure out what I am and all this stuff, the 6 names that I've earned or gained over this period of time. The first was Shadow Walker. It's just my handle. That's, okay, like I said, I was talking to a woman in Australia. She was a paranormal investigator. I interviewed her on the podcast for her team. After the conversation, after the interview, I asked her, do you know anything about this? I said, I do most psychic or mediums. A lot of them came up with, I never heard of that before. That sounds odd. Yeah, but you know what? It sounds like my friend. Let me could bring her up here. She's actually downstairs. It's like what she does. So I talked to her friend Jane. Her friend Jane was like, oh, you're a psychopomp or a shadow walker. And I was like, what? And she goes, well, I can do what you're talking about, but I only pull anything on the light side and I help the spirit cross over that way. It's almost like I grab their energy and transfer it to the other side, but I never do anything dark whatsoever. Because she said she went to her shaman and asking about her ability. I said, oh yeah, you're a psychopomp or a shadow walker. Now, I've looked up the terminology of a psychopomp and that doesn't describe me at all. That's more what my wife does, Megan. She basically opens portals and doorways for spirits to cross over that want to leave. She never forces anybody to leave. She says, hey, there's a door. You guys can leave if you want to. A lot of spirits choose to, so actually choose to stay behind because after, like I said, we take care of a place, make it 98% less haunted than it was when we first arrived. Spirits choose to leave, some choose to stay because, hey, I took away all the bullies. Now this place is nice to be at. But Shadow Walker is what she first called me, so that name got stuck. The second one that I earned was Earth Shaker. And when I started researching on different faiths out there and stuff like that, I found about the Great Spirit of the Sky, the Great Mystery called Earth Maker. And I remember one of the guys I was investigating with, I was talking about that. Hey, there's a Native American entity called the Great Spirit of the Sky. They call him Earth Maker. And he said he laughed. He's like, "Why did I make you Earth Shaker?" because you pull stuff from the ground, right? And I was like, yeah, because if I put my hand to the earth, I can feel the dark energy, depending on which hand, of about 100-yard radius from the spot that I'm touching.
Hmm.
I can pull all the energy from that point like a giant net that basically captures all the negative energy and pull it up and take it. And a couple of times I've done that, people have felt the ground vibrate. So I've actually earned that one, Earth Shaker. The third was Odin's Dranger.
Sounds so badass.
Yeah. And it's because when my first oppression case I ever did, the first time a confirmed demonic oppression, I was going to the house to test my ability against this. Like I've taken dark things out in our investigations, but I never knew it was a demon or not. This I know for sure. And I did a small offering, and this is around after the time me and my wife abandoned Christianity, left it behind,
Hmm.
answers for us, and it went out what we were doing. So we're like, let's put it on the shelf. Let's, and we started looking into the Nordic faith. And we started using runes as protection. But what she said was like, you think we should do offering to Odin just so he has his back in battle? And I was like, hey, there it is.
I got a whole stash over here of just random stuff.
Yeah. So that stuff, I would get the Posa Ida and the Elda Ida, if you don't have it already. The Posa Ida and the Elda Ida is the closest thing any Nordics have to an actual Bible. It's not an actual Bible, but it's the closest thing we have to it from everything that's been destroyed over time. But anyway, so I made a small offering of a wolf pendant made of wood and a few crystals and some herbs, and I buried in the ground. And I said, "All Father, protect me in battle." And I heard as clear as I'm speaking to you, Tranger, right? And I was standing outside. I looked around like, what the hell's going on? Like, there's no one around me. There's no one out here. And I looked at the word up, and Dranger is apparently a Nordic word that other Vikingers would use to basically compliment each other. And it
Hmm.
simply means badass or ultimate warrior. Like, oh, dude, you're a Dranger. Oh, you're a Dranger.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So for the Allfather to call me Dranger, right? That's a big compliment. So Odin's Dranger. That's how that one stuck. The fourth was actually the best description you can give about what I am and what I'm doing is a shaman. Shamans are able to affect energies around them and stuff like that into people's life force, clear them up. But most shamans have to spend years learning the practice of what they're doing with meditations to even get in contact with their spirit guides.
Hmm.
And I do everything like I was naturally born to do it. Like I
Yeah.
was made to be one. And my wife, when her research found that there are apparently shamans in Aztec and Nordic and even Haitian faiths that would use objects, mostly staffs, to imprison dark energy
Hmm.
in places they would go. And she's like, oh shit, so it's not a kind of common thing. Yeah. And those shamans would always be made for war. So war shaman became, I think, my fourth name. And then the fifth name was the name what they called me, what the demons, what dark entities, they call me. They don't call me Isaac. They don't call me Shadow Walker. They call me asshole and every swear word you can think of. But
Yes.
what they always call me is Order Keeper. That's what they call me, Order.
So you're like what are they? Like hall monitor.
Or like,
You're like the ghost hall monitor.
that. Yeah, I always like to talk to my wife. We're like the police of the spiritual world, essentially putting everything in place in order. But yeah, Order Keeper is what they call me. But the sixth name, and this is the most important of all my names, this name is probably the biggest key to exactly who I am. I had surgery about 2 years ago over my belly button. I had a hernia. And the member on my team named Mike, he was probably my mentor almost because he taught me a lot of things, helped me guide me through a lot of stuff. He had about 6 or 7 different surgeries over his stomach because he had cancer. So he had to
Mhm.
keep fixed. He's in remission. He's fine. But he said, when you're under anesthesia, you can go anywhere. Now,
Mhm.
what he means, like the detachment from your body, your spirit, if you wanted to, it's basically the strongest form of meditation you ever try. It's like, oh shit. So I was like, okay, I'll try that. I'll try when I go under to do that. And literally the night before my surgery, we get visited by a spirit. It's the spirit of my grandfather, but not my current vessel's grandfather. My grandfather, that was my grandfather in the early 1700s when I was
Yeah.
part of the Cheyenne tribe as a Cheyenne spirit warrior. I've had a couple of past life regressions done, and they've dated my soul back before ancient Mesopotamia. In other words, I have been here for thousands and thousands. It's pretty interesting because the woman we trust the most, her name is V, or she has a star name, but she goes by V. But yeah, the spirit of my grandfather from the time was in the Cheyenne tribe. Basically told my wife, communicating to her to tell me when I go under tomorrow to go and find him. So I was like, all right. So I don't know if you've had surgery before.
I've had 18.
Hey,
So I've actually died on the operating table before too. So I've been around the block a few times.
at your ability, or at least how they probably amped.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never experienced falling asleep and waking up in the same second and hours have passed by. But the time I was under, all I remembered from the 6 hours I was under is me sitting in front of a rock face of an open cave area. And there's nothing but like wilderness out from where it is. There's a fire between us, a blue flame fire. And I was sitting across looking at an elderly Native American man. And he had the whole get up of the time period, the headdress,
Yeah.
everything, the clothes, all that. And all I remember from our conversation is him pointing to me and saying, "You are Ashwakanatunka, the Reaper of Souls. You
That's such a badass way to say it.
Yes. Yeah. He said, "You are Ashwakanatunka, the Reaper of Souls." And that's all I freaking remember from that entire time. And I tried to look at that name, Ashwakanatunka, and I couldn't find anything, nothing. I've even asked Native people around where I live here and no clue. They say it sounds indigenous, but we can't pinpoint where it is. And I was like, I don't know. Something strange though about that name. The native spirits that we come across in our investigations here, that's what they call me when we're out there. We hear it over the spirit box, Ashwakanatunka. Oh, Ashwakanatunka. We hear it over the spirit box of native spirits talking to us here on the East Coast. But then I have a friend in Vancouver who's a paranormal investigator as well. He does investigations over there. He went to a Native American burial area where a lot of Native American spirits are buried. People are buried. And while he's in investigation that graveyard, he asked him, "Hey, I have a friend in the States. He has a name that's Native American. I want to know if you guys know it." And he said, "You guys know the name Ashwakanatunka." And he heard clearly over the spirit box, "Ah, he is king." So Native American spirits on the West Coast, Northern Canada, and Native American spirits on the East Coast, right, around this area, both know the name Ashwakanatunka. And this is supposed to be a Cheyenne legend that's specifically to Central America. There is something of a legend of Ashwakanatunka that extends across all Native tribes that has either been forgotten or hidden.
Before the continents broke up, people were all we were one group at one point, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it was like before everything got super scattered, maybe which is why one called you the king and one called you the Reaper of Souls, because they both know that they have the same like status, but they're slightly different. So maybe it started with the same name, but they kind of like if you spell Ashley with 2 E's and an EY. If that makes sense.
I was going towards more there's some kind of Native American legend of something who I was and who knows how long ago that they all knew, or a legend that they're waiting to happen. I don't know. But I find it odd that, yeah, both natives on spirits on both sides of this continent essentially know who the hell Ashwakanatunka is. And another strange thing is too, I did a mind force clearing for a woman, and she had in her mind force was a jungle, and she had her mind force is already cleared. So I was like, okay, so there's not much to do in here. And she had I want to say like an indigenous woman of these southern tribes, like around Mexico or Brazil, for the way she was dressed, the woman. And she was like literally firing bow and arrows at me. I was like, "Hey, stop it." And she goes, "You're intruding." I was like, "No, I'm looking. I was just making sure there's nothing dark here." She's like, "Well, it hasn't been any dark here for a while now." She says, "How are you even doing this?" I said, "It's who I am." And I said, "I am Ashwakanatunka." And she put her bow down. She goes, "I've heard that name from the northern tribes." And I was like, "What?" I said, "No, a spirit." Let me reference. When I clear mind forest out, your main spirit guide comes forward, and they come forward to not your only spirit guide, but your main spirit guide comes forward to basically protect that space from any more further intruders. And I've spoken to a kaleidoscope of spirit guides from skateboarders, from Vikings, from gunslingers, from doctors, from ballerina dancers, from night, anyone and everyone you can think of. I have spoken to that's a spirit guide. But she had an indigenous woman as her main spirit guide in her mind force. But I found it strange. She knew the name Ashwaubenon, and yet she was probably from the southern area tribes, from the way the environment looked and how she was dressed. So I was like, is there something bigger to this name that I even comprehend? A legend that is forgotten, or a legend that's kept secret? Who knows? Kanatanka was a sixth name that seems to hold more reverence than anything else. But yeah, so far on this journey, I've only met one other person besides my wife who's capable of imprisoning or taking dark energy, dark entity specifically, and then putting them in the ring. Besides myself, my wife, and she's not my biological sister, but I call her that because it almost feels right. Like we were siblings in multiple past lives, and we feel that about each other when we met. They are important. Let me emphasize this. Priests, psychic mediums, shamans, light workers, they're all important in this war against darkness, spiritual darkness, to help push these things away. But then there lies the problem. All they've ever done is move an entity onto somebody else. They put away to someone else's problem versus taking care of it. And that's why I'm different, because I stop it. I take the entity away, I put it in the ring, it's done, it's over with, it's never leaving, it's never escaping, it's never going anywhere else, it's never bothering anyone else. That energy stops to never influence or affect anyone ever again. And no one is able to guarantee that ever since, well, now. Everyone's always said, oh, I push it away, I send it away, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Yeah, it's very personal, but what about the next person that gets affected by the entity? Therein lies the problem. But I am the solution. And if anyone listening is essentially worried, well, what if someone takes the ring? What if someone does that? I don't think they can, because that would influence the idea of magic. And I don't practice magic. I don't know how to, for one, but it's like a natural energetic ability. What I am or who I am is something so strong and outside the norm of what a regular psychic or regular shaman or even a regular magic practitioner is capable of doing. Hence why I'm capable of taking down things I say I take down, which I know it's hard for anyone to believe. 120 demons? You gotta be kidding, dude. I have receipts. Yeah, this is before my wife was able to learn to shield our home. She's able to project a positive energy shield around the house that stops stuff from getting in. That was like they're banging against bulletproof glass. At least what it sounds like to her. But one night I was going down toward the den, and from the kitchen you can see into the den, and I saw him standing there in the living room area going, no, 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 with his hands up like this. And I was like, what is he doing? And I've reached out with my right hand. I felt something dark in the corner where he had his hands pointed at. And I pulled whatever it was, and he turned, but not like he knew I was there. He turned like he was following the energy, seeing where it was going. We talked about how she gained to her abilities, how I gained to mine, what we've experienced, what we saw, how we did it and stuff like that. And basically try to help others when that idea, because I said something that she thought was profound. I said, your abilities to attune to the other side is a gift. Not much people think of it as a curse, but it would be detrimental to your existence to ignore it or to put that kind of ability away. You have a responsibility now, a gift to communicate with others, to give a cheat code to life more than anyone else has ever had before. And like myself, the responsibility I have now, it would be selfish of me to sit on the sideline and do nothing when I know I can affect everything. There are people out there suffering from things that they have tried to pray away, use holy water, had shamans come in, and all it's done has gotten worse. And a simple 30-minute call with me and it's done, it's over with, like it never happened. You definitely start strengthening your skills, because you have a great talent that's basically going untapped. And to answer your question, like, why do I have more than just one typical thing? You got to think of, someone always asks, like, can anyone be psychic? Yes, but up to an extent. Can anyone play basketball? Yeah. Are any of us good? Some of us are. Some of us are pretty good. Some of us are college worthy. Some of us are good enough to play the NBA. Some of us get remembered throughout history as maybe one of the greatest of all time. So some of us have natural talent that is built within us, and some of us have to work really hard just to be able to give a decent free throw. So it all goes with the idea that some of us are meant to do this and some of us others, but we all can have a in tuneship to the other side. But
If you had a piece of advice to give anybody out there who might be dealing with something a little dark or something that they can't explain as far as a safety precaution to protect themselves, what would you suggest?
one, contact me to get rid of it. And two, depends on what it is. A human dark entity usually is there because it was their home or you have something of theirs. They were their space, their place. If you are like yourself, psychically inclined, they're attracted to you for that idea. But if you're not, it's because you're intruding in their space or you have something of theirs, hence a haunted object or an object they're attached to. Something you were given, something you bought, they follow and like, that's mine. And they become a-holes because if you're an a-hole in life, you most likely will be one after you die, especially if you choose to stay here. Because most dark human entities who we come across are afraid of judgment. So they choose to stay because they do not want to cross over and not deal with what might be on the other side to their extent of knowledge. But simple incense and stuff like that, or sage, is like a band-aid for a broken leg. It clears out the negative energy you might pick up from other people. But as of getting rid of something inside your home, it's not going to do much. Human entities require some kind of like try to get rid of in objects. But I find that dark black crystals, tourmaline seems to be the best to ward off negative energy. But the only reasons we've come that I figure out from all the cases I've done in my interrogation of said demons is that the only two reasons I see that demons even go after somebody is because they see you as prey or they see you as a threat. If
That makes
you're
sense.
capable of oppression, what they want from a person is your negative emotions. They feed on it like a drug. It's attractant. They want it. And they'll do everything they can to keep it, putting you in that state of depression, of anger, of sadness. Every negative emotion you emit is another hit on the drug for them. And they become so obsessed that they'll do anything to keep it. Hence why they get very violent when someone tries to take that person away from them or send them away. Things get worse. They convince the person, if you send that priest comes back, I'm gonna kill your family if you're gonna do. And so the person then, says, "Oh, well, I don't want this to happen," and they push people away and they accept it, the idea for fear of what might happen if they do, which is again a scare tactic and a manipulation technique used by them. If you're a threat, they usually attack, and they're only meant to make sure that you do not involve yourself in something that will, again, remove them from a place that they call their own. So I've had a few cases where an investigator goes to a location and he plans to go back there with someone to help remove dark energy, and that person gets attacked in their home. Or their child gets threatened. They hear it over a spirit box saying, "I'm going to kill your kid if you continue with this." So,
Oh,
yeah, I've had one case, a friend who's paranormal investigators in the Midwest area. I want to say around you, where you are actually.
now say I'm in the
Yeah.
Midwest.
Yeah, he contacted me literally like at 9 o'clock at night. So he had me walk around the house, basically POV camera, walk around, and I pulled 3 different things because I've come to find out that demons run in threes.
Yeah.
Or there's like a master and there's 2 servants or slaves that are subservient to the demon. Sometimes there are other demons and sometimes they're regular human entities. It all depends, I guess, on the ranking of the demon. But yeah, they always run in threes. And even dark human entities do that too. They run in threes. There's always 3 of them.
And I can tell. It's like I can be in a room and I can close my eyes. And if there is something else in here, I can tell you what that person looks like. Is it a male? Is it a female? How old is it? What color is their hair? I can tell you all of that. Sometimes even down to like what they smell like, depending on the person.
What people don't understand is that demons don't work on your time. They work on their time. And they could bother you 15 years in gaps of time or whatever they want to do. Because sometimes you're not the only one that they're going after. There might be a lot of other people who they're trying to oppress. Like I said, if you're addicted to that drug of negative energy, you're trying to get as much as you can. And one person's not giving you enough. You move on and you come back to that person when they might be in a state of depression or sadness.
Yeah.
Or to absorb some more.
Fun for me. I'm bipolar. So I'm every demon's dream.
But advice I'd give to anyone essentially is that to protect your home in the highest degree you can, especially for investigators. The average person, you might not encounter anything, especially if you're not going into your locations and not lurking to pick a fight. paranormal investigators, I give to the advice essentially protect your home at all costs. Every form of protection that you would think of, you might not even care or have a idea that, oh, it's not going to protect me. No, do something. But also
I
comprehend.
have this, but I haven't read it yet.
Click dust.
I have no idea what that is.
We use runes. Well, for some reason, the Nordic gods seem to have our back, so we use a lot of Nordic runes as symbols of protection. And plus, Megan has learned to project his house, put a shield around it, and that's how he really can get in. So we haven't really dealt with anything dark at coming inside the house in about a year and a half now. They're outside banging on the shield, I'll know, and then she'll have me pull it through the shield, and I'll put it in the ring. And pulling an entity through the shield is extremely painful on their part. For example, use an analogy. If you remember Avengers, Infinity War, when they were fighting in Wakanda, the Ravagers, the creature things, when they're running, they're really tearing themselves through the shield to get through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, imagine that when pulling through, so pulling entity through the shield and all their skin is like burning away as it's going through. Then I shove them into the ring. It's not much
Ew.
of it's more like I send the energy. I can feel it like leaving my hand and going in there. But I variate entities on strength by how they feel. Like a human entity to a lower level demon feels like smoke. Like how I can feel like smoke in my hand. So
Mhm.
stronger will feel like sand. Like what's like holding sand in my hand.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at the irony here. I literally just recorded with somebody yesterday, and I used the analogy of it'd be like trying to explain to somebody what sand feels like. This is
Right.
like, this is so you and her, and then the one I recorded last weekend, it was like nonstop. I just had a conversation with somebody, and then the same topics were coming up in all my recordings. It's really weird.
Synchronicity. So far, 37 home cases. I have 4 testimonials on the podcast.
Oh,
Four
perfect.
people who've come forward and out of the 37, a lot of people don't want anyone to know what happened to them, so they don't come on. But the 4 cases I've done, 4 interviews I've done with people, I think is Barry, Mariah, Mike, and Christy, who actually are good friends of ours. They're also investigators. And then the most profound story is a woman named Down. Her son was being oppressed by the spirit of a witch who had 3 demons in her stead. And it got so bad for this kid that he literally couldn't walk. He would literally drag himself on the floor because he couldn't walk, so much pain he was in that they were with. But after, like I said, 45 minutes, I think, cleared out her place. And like it never happened. She literally went from days before she had to commit her son to the psych ward because they couldn't figure out what's wrong with him, to him playing around, laughing, having fun, even getting into practicing in Taekwondo and MMA.
See, that's awesome.
In a week's matter of time. She literally, she messages us once a month and thanks us consistently. It's been over a year now since we helped him. And Mike from Unknown Paranormal and his investigation team in Canada, his story, Mike and Christy's story, I helped him out because he had something in his home that was oppressing his son. And literally, like I said, like night and day. Before I pulled, terrible shit. After I pulled, like it never was there. And he said after that day, he's like, I don't know. I know we live in different parts of the United States, but whatever you do in the future, I want to be part of because I have never experienced anything like this.
Yeah.
Ever. So me and him became almost like brothers now, how close we are to each other. So we always talk. Like that. He's helped me on investigations. He finds me cases around that area of Vancouver. We do them together through the phone. He finds places. He takes me places to take stuff out. I have a few friends like that.
I just had this thing in my mind where I'm like, oh my gosh, what if he went to a really famous paranormal hotspot, right? That's making all this money on paranormal investigations, and then you just fucking take them all out, and then they all hate your guts. Has it happened to you yet?
No, but that's a strong possibility of what's going to happen because every location we've ever gone to that's been highly like a lot of paranormal activity has become dramatically less after we leave it, to a point where people don't go investigate anymore because there's nothing there to talk to. So yeah, I already knew this. I'm going to be extremely hated by all the clout chasers in the paranormal investigation game because I'm taking away their bread and butter. I'm taking away what they go to look for. They want demons there. They want dark entities. They want this stuff to catch evidence, and that's the only reason they want it. I do not allow them to be anywhere at any time, any point in time. I come across anything of that nature, it instantly goes into the ring.
My
I do
thing
not
hates
give a
you.
no
I don't know what's
quarter
going on.
scenarios to any of them. And I have extreme passion, hatred to anything on a dark side, especially demons, for one specific reason. When my son was no more than 3 months old, we placed him in the center of the bed. My wife extremely cautious about him rolling off the bed and hitting the ground. She was like overprotective. And I was like, all right, he's fine in the middle. He's bundled up. He's not going to go anywhere. He can't even crawl. She even put pillows around on the floor just in case. Like, he can't even roll. What are you doing? Anyway, we step out of the room into the hall because we're talking about a next investigation or something like that. We were no more in the hall for less than a minute. And we hear a thud. Run back into the room. He is now on the floor, face down. Lucky he landed on the pillows, with the blanket off of him.
Wow.
My wife, when she entered the room, she was crying and stuff. When she took him out, she was scared about him being injured. But she said afterwards that she felt an evil presence when she walked into the room. This is before
you can feel it.
This is before I had my abilities and before any of that. If something like that would hurt a child that is incapable of thought profound more than what colors and what their parents look like, to harm them because they want to and they can, does not deserve to exist with the rest of us.
Good point.
I do not care what anyone thinks about whether you want to be friends with the demon, which is stupid, or you want it there for profit. I don't care. I'm taking it. And the thing is, too, how do you sue somebody by taking a dark entity away from a location? How do you do that?
You can't.
How you're going to have to prove it exists, which there's no such thing as a court of case law for that. So, no, I don't allow dark energy to exist. I don't allow it to be in our presence. And I am going to, with this, I've just started now, as far as reach as I can go, and any places that I can go to take this stuff out. But yeah, I have some wish list spots. Pavilia Island, one castle in Russia.
The other one I thought was so cool. Reaper of the Souls or whatever.
Reaper of Souls. Astral Country.
Yeah, Reaper of Souls. I can't decide which one's cooler. Shadow Walker's pretty cool.
But yeah, Shadow Walker has been my main title as of his right. It's because it came with my first name. First name besides my actual birth name. But I always relate, it's strange. When they say when you connect to your higher self and become ascended, or however those weird spiritual TikTokers always want to use that terminology. But essentially, connecting to your higher self is acknowledging that your current vessel, your person you are right now, is just one of many you have been in this time. And you lose obligations with family. It's like you don't see your family as like obligated to be around them, but instead you have a strong relationship with people who are not biological family, but because they're your spiritual family. And you have a strong connection with those people versus, say, your actual aunt, uncle, brother, sister, and more connection with someone else like that.
And I think it might have been Kevin, and we were just recording. And I'm like, oh my God. He's like, I was like, you didn't hear that? I went back, wasn't in the recording. It was just while I was doing it. So they'll do it. If they want your attention, they'll make it happen.
So they move it over objects and makes lights flicker and stuff like that.
Yep. I actually have a video on my phone where my lights were flickering off and on, and things move, and they've taken my remote and they hid my remote from me because my lights operate on a remote.
Yeah.
And I tore this place apart for an hour. This is a very small studio, like 10 by 8 feet, maybe. And I looked for an hour. I moved the tables, I moved the desk, I moved everything looking for this remote and couldn't find it. Eventually, I sat down in my chair and I'm like, all right, guys. I was like, good one. Joke's on me. Ha ha. Put it back. I said, put the remote. I was like, I'm going to leave. I'll come back tomorrow, and that remote better be where I can fucking find it. Do you understand me? And then I walked out, locked the door. I came back in the next day. And right underneath my chair, which I had moved all over the place in here, it's got wheels, was my remote, just sitting right underneath my chair where I was sitting. And I was like,
kids would do.
yes, my kids do that. They like to stand at my door and go, Mommy, 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 until I get up,
Yes.
which is a little creepy. And they're always different, except there's one that growls a lot. I think that's probably the same one. But the different words and stuff, like I had one, I swear it said sandwich. I know that sounds stupid, but I am 98% sure it says sandwich. And hold on, I wonder if I can get it to play my microphone for you. Because it was really funny. Because I was like, wait, did I just get a hungry ghost? Because I just had it.
Probably said a longer sentence. All you heard was the sandwich part.
All right, here we go. It's happening.
Yeah, it does.
Like sandwich.
My wife's really good at picking up or figuring out what EVPs are saying. If you send it to her, I think she could probably figure it out.
But sometimes they're fine. But yeah.
Because it sounds like he says witch at the end, so it could be saying something witch. Like he might be calling you a witch. Like,
Oh, true. There was one kept calling me a name and I can't remember what it was. But I've been called this name twice. And it had, when I looked it up, it was something witchy. Like the definition was, I can't remember what the hell it was, but it was something witchy, and two different voices called me the same name. So maybe I'm a witch. I've been called that a few times in my life.
Well, it's hard for people to believe that because they've been conditioned to believe that no one, not one person on this planet has power over.
No human.
No human has power over demons or dark entities or anything of the sort. We can only annoy them enough to leave a place more than say fight them, because we are just mere humans with basic souls. Besides the testimonials, I would always point everyone to go listen to Dal's story, that episode, because you hear in her voice the amount of emotion, the amount of realness. And honestly, I think she was suffering more than she let on or told us about. Because she was like literally almost going to get divorced. She talked about that. Like she was literally almost going to get divorced. And for her to be a complete 180 when it was from that point on until afterwards, like I said, she must have been going through a lot more than she told us about. But I always point everyone to that direction. If you want to hear a testimony of how I help somebody, go listen to Dow's story. That one, beyond any other testimonials I have done or going to do, hers is the most proficient and most profound when you listen to it.
All right. Well, actually, which is really weird. So I sound weird to myself now because I keep hearing people talking to me and my mic sounds weird. So I'm getting like a double whammy of something happening here. And then you're getting grainy. But before we go, I do want to make sure I remind everybody again, as always, he has been fantastic and he filled out that awesome guest form. I know some people don't really like the fact that I have a guest form, but because of that form, in the description and notes, whatever you want to call it, for this episode, all of his links are going to be listed because they're all right there on the form. So go check him out, like, spread the word, review, subscribe, whatever you need to do on whatever platform you're on. Just help him out. Thank you again for coming. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, see you later. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cryptids, Creeps, and Conspiracy. If you wouldn't mind, please take a moment and rate and review the show wherever you're listening. I know it might not seem like much, but it greatly helps the show by allowing us to be found more easily when other listeners search for us. If you have a chance, head on over to www.patreon.com/cryptids, creeps, and conspiracy and become a patron. Members of the Big Show tier get bonus materials, personalized shout-outs, access to the private Discord server, and video versions of episodes, both regular and members only, that are raw and unedited. So they're always a good time. As an added thank you to the Big Show patrons, we also are going to be giving out custom stickers and mini prints after 3 months of membership. I'm currently offering a 7-day free trial, so head on over and see how awesome being a member can be. Before you go, click the link in the description and grab yourself or someone you know some of the self-designed merch or make a donation to help keep the show going and fund future events and investigations for t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, magnets, as well as pants, swimwear, the best tumblers I have found yet, dresses, office supplies, and more. Visit the Square merch store. You can also follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, Threads, and TikTok. If you have any questions, topic recommendations, or personal encounters, please don't hesitate to send them in to cryptidscreepsandconspiracy@gmail.com or submit them through the contact form at www.cryptidscreepsandconspiracy.com. I would love to hear from you and share your experience on a special listener episode. Just make sure to specify that I have permission to add your encounter to the show, and let me know whether you would like to have your real name or an alias to maintain confidentiality. Thank you again so much for all your support, and I'll see you next time, my friend.